Testing 1, 2. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Fish the Moment live stream. Today we're going to be talking about fall cold front fishing, and so we're talking about different areas, different types of cover, using sonar recordings, contour line maps, all kinds of stuff. We'll also get into baits and answer some of your questions as well live on the stream. And so if you're watching this back on YouTube after the video has been posted, then you can skip ahead to about the 10-minute mark. That's when I'll jump into the content. But before that, I'm actually going to give some channel updates, talk about some stuff that's been going on the last few weeks, and at the 10-minute mark, I'll start jumping into the actual fishing content. But for those of you who are here for the stream, what is up, guys? Good to see everybody. We got Quincy, we got Angela, Roger, we got Desert Angler, Michael, Brian, John, and Texas Air Gunner. What is up, guys? Good to see. So, okay, let's see here. Get a few other guys. I'm getting some therapy going on. Michael is asking, did I miss something last week? Stream 42 wasn't posted to YouTube. Yeah, I had some technical difficulties at the end of the stream last week. For those who were on, I showed something on the screen I probably shouldn't have shown. It was something, don't worry about it. It wasn't like bad, but it was something that I didn't need to be out on the internet. It was something on one of my software. It was like a software or something that I didn't feel comfortable sharing with the world, because I don't know, someone might be able to use that to mess with my computer, mess with something. So basically, I just deleted the video and got it off the internet because of that, and there wasn't any way to save the video, edit it down to a smaller chunk, and get rid of that part. It happened right at the end of the stream, and so it wasn't a big deal. I mean, nothing happened. Wasn't a problem there. It was just, I'm not going to be showing that page on my Sonar viewer from now on. But anyways, I'm going to be posting this video to my YouTube channel as always, and I'm also going to start posting a lot more videos, guys. I'm going to be posting a lot more frequently over the next coming months and hopefully years to come. And so I've kind of readjusted my schedule, so I should be able to put out at least 2 videos a week, and I'm doing a lot fewer on the water lessons. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to be able to produce more content for you guys that is available to a lot more people rather than just doing one-on-one lessons. And I kind of booked up my lessons. I opened them up all the way through October, and basically I booked everything up in like July for all of October, and I realized that the schedule wasn't really working. I wasn't able to get all my videos out, do the lessons, do everything like that. But I'm kind of working back through all of my backlog and also trying to get everything organized so that I'm ready to go when I actually start my kind of consistent video uploading. So that's where I've been the last few weeks. I've been trying to get everything organized, get everything ready. Part of that was actually getting the logo you see right up here on the screen, up there, the Fish the Moment logo. Let me know what you guys think of that. Got the Fish the Moment, the fishing professor. I really like the logo, kind of like the tagline as well, so I think it should be really cool. Also was revamping my Fish the Moment bass camp and all kinds of stuff. So I want to jump into that with you guys for a little bit, and then we'll jump into the fishing content. But anyways, let's see here. We're going to just switch over here. It's been a couple weeks since I feel like I've live streamed, even though it was just last week. Let's transition over here, and boom. Oh, we need to shrink this down. This is kind of taking up a lot of the screen. There we go. That's better. So anyways, we're going to pull up fishthemoment.com here, guys. This is my website. I'm sure some of you guys have been here, and you can see I have the new logo on there. I have a few other things kind of set up, and so just want to give you guys an idea of what's going on with my website, what's going on with my content going forward. And so first up, one thing I am adding to my website, if you go to the website and you scroll down past the main page, I'm adding a calendar to my website. So you're going to see Fish the Moment live stream. You're going to see my bass camp's going to be posted here. You're going to see if I'm ever doing any meetups or events. I'm also going to put my video upload schedule starting in mid-November. My schedule is going to be a little bit inconsistent because I'm still working through some on-the-water lessons that I still have all the way through the first week of November. But after that, I'm going to be posting when I'm uploading YouTube videos, do my live streams, all kinds of stuff. And so this is going to be up to date. I'm going to update it pretty much daily with everything I'm doing so you guys know what's going on. And then the other things I have going on, first with my virtual fishing lessons, I have adjusted these so that I do my one-on-one video lessons just on Mondays. I have spots open from 11, 1, 4 p. 11 a.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Central Time, and 6 p.m. Central Time. So those are my times on Mondays. So you can see I'm already booked up for the next couple weeks here, and all the way almost out for 4 weeks. So if you guys do want to get a one-on-one video lesson where I can look at your lake, break down your lake, talk to you about your fishery, then this is definitely the thing to do. And I would get on the calendar ahead of time because these things are sold out 2-3 weeks in advance already. And so definitely would book a lesson if you want to have me kind of break down a lake with you just like this, just like I'm talking to you on my live stream, except for you'll be on a video chat with me and we'll talk through all kinds of stuff. Next thing is I actually just posted the offshore fishing playbook. This is something I've been working on for about a month now. This has actually taken up a lot of my time of what I was doing while I was out. And this is I call it the ultimate resource to take your offshore fishing game to the next level. And this, as you can see, there's some pages on here. I kind of blurred out the images so you guys can't see exactly what's going on because that would kind of defeat the purpose. But really what I did is I tried to make a comprehensive guide that you can buy, print out, and take with you on the water. And it'll tell you what you need to be looking for offshore, the conditions you need to be focusing on. I'll give you ideas on how to adapt the conditions, how deep to look for fish offshore, how to put all the factors together, the location, the weather, time of day, everything like that. And also give you some processes basically to follow when you're on the lake to find more fish and catch more fish offshore, as well as my 5 offshore fishing best practices, which I give a detailed description of each one. And so it's like 17 pages of content. It's a really good resource for offshore fishing. It's $50. I tried to price it pretty low just for guys, so a lot of guys can get it and get their hands on it. It's a ton of work, and it's something that I put years of work into, so I feel like $50 is actually maybe even a little bit too low of a price for it. But the reason I said it there is because I want to get it in as many people's hands as possible, and so that's kind of my goal with this. So definitely I would check out the offshore fishing playbook, and I also have obviously my free bait guides, which I'm making more and more of as time goes on. And I'm setting up my schedule so I can make more of these for fall baits, offshore summer baits. I'm planning on doing a jig guide, a crankbait guide, moving bait guides, things like that. And so those will be coming, and those are going to be really, really cool. So I'm excited about those. So definitely check out the offshore fishing playbook. This is brand new on the channel, on my website, fishthemoment.com. It is going to be a really, really good resource for you guys. And then last thing I want to announce is the Fish the Moment Bass Camp. So Fish the Moment Bass Camp is, you may have heard me talk about it before, but it's how I'm actually going to transition to doing more of my in-person instruction. So instead of doing the one-on-one lessons, like the guided trips where I go out in the boat with you individually, I am actually going to switch it up and do these bass camps instead. So I can talk to more people, I can get the information across to more people that way. And so I have several different classes. One of them is going to be a Sonar boot camp, where we'll have time in the classroom where I can talk about how to understand sonar. I'll break down every single thing from how to understand side imaging, down imaging, 2D sonar, everything you need to know. It'll be the most comprehensive class on 2D or on sonar in general, and it's also going to be application based. So what I want to focus on is how you can actually use your sonar to catch more fish, not just explain this arch means this is how the cone angle goes down, like all the technical stuff. We're not going to worry about the technical stuff. We're going to teach you the stuff that you actually need to know, that no one talks about, the manuals don't share with you, all the things that I've learned that will tell you, are the fish actively feeding? Are they bass? What type of structures are best for these fish? When the fish are positioned in a certain way, how do you know if they're feeding, inactive, active? All kinds of crazy stuff that I've learned over the years. It always helps me catch more fish on the water, and that I can share with you. And you can also sign up for a 30-minute on the water period with me as well, where I can actually set up your graph for you and tune your graph on the water with you as part of this course. And then I also have the offshore fishing boot camp, which is basically going to be me going through with a lot of the information I share in the offshore fishing playbook, but in person, explaining it, giving you really detailed instruction on how to find fish offshore, giving you strategies, giving you my process for finding fish offshore. And it's definitely something that I think is going to be super valuable, and it will jumpstart your offshore fishing game and take it to the next level. And also, I'm going to be doing some casting camps. So Fish the Moment Casting Camp, I'll be teaching you how to flip, pitch, roll cast, skip cast, make long casts, 50-yard casts. We're talking about how to do all those things in that camp. And then I'll also be doing some on-the-water lessons as well. So if you do want to get that on-the-water instruction, I will have a few of these available. And so the first Fish the Moment Bass Camp with this new format, if I click down here, is going to be on Sam Rayburn Lake in Texas in January. So if you guys are in Texas or in that area, the first one is going to be in Texas in January. And so you can see here we have January 10th and 11th for the Sonar class. For the offshore fishing class, it's January 11th. For the Sonar, or for the casting camp, it's January 13th. And I have 3 full day on the water lessons that are, you can have up to 2 people in the boat, so you can split the cost. It'll be $700, but you can split it between 2 people, $350 a piece, and it's just gonna be 3 days available there. That's all I'll have time for as I'm there. Otherwise, I could spend months in each state I go to, I feel like, and give lessons, but I need to limit it just for my time so I can make more video content, all kinds of stuff for you guys. But that's something I'm doing right here, and I'm really excited about it. So definitely sign up. Now, it's not till January, but these things are going to fill up super fast, and I have limited spots. I have 20 spots in the Sonar camp. I have 20 spots in the offshore camp, 20 spots in the casting camp, and 3 full day on the water lessons. So definitely sign up now if you guys want to get a spot there, because I guarantee you they will fill up really, really fast. By the way, thanks so much for the super chat, Jamie Ferguson, $9.99. I really appreciate that. Let's see here. And then, see here, a couple guys are saying that they really, really like the offshore fishing playbook. I'm glad that that you guys like it. Can't wait to study it. Some guys are saying they purchase it. Really appreciate that, guys. And again, really appreciate if you guys do support me on those sorts of things. If I can sell more playbooks, sell more of the offshore fishing playbooks, and do more of the bait guides where you actually go in here, use my Tackle Warehouse links, and buy stuff through Tackle Warehouse, it means I have to do less on-the-water instruction, and that means I can get more free YouTube content out to you guys. And so again, if I could start selling more of these, doing more stuff through like my Patreon page, doing stuff through my virtual lessons, stuff like that, gives me way more time to be on the water, sharing information, making lots of videos, and get that free content out and make it really high quality. So that's going to try to be my goal and my shift, because I want to get more content to you guys. So I know it's a little bit over the 10 minutes that I had a lot to talk about there. So that was that. But what I want to jump into now is actually the fishing portion, where I actually talk about how to catch fish. So I'm actually, guys, I'm going to be going through and talking about, let's see here. And then someone asks if prefer January camp and weather doesn't allow me to get there, is there a refund policy? As far as refunds go, I'm doing a refund 14 days before the camp, and my refund policy is in there on the camp. You can check there, and then if you don't get a refund, there's some things, or if you can't cancel within that time period, there are some things I can do to make it up to you that I have on my website. So check that out, and you should be able to be brought back as close to full as far as value goes. So I'm gonna make sure no one gets put out if they can't make it. I know with schedules and stuff, there's challenges there, so I will make sure that you are fully compensated for that, time that you missed with the camp. So just want to make sure I'm doing this because I want to teach you guys. I'm not doing this to screw you guys over and take your money. Like, I want to make sure that if something like that happens, I bring you up to full as best I can as far as the services and what I can provide. Because that's what I would want if I was going to do this. I wouldn't want just to like, no, don't get any refunds. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's see here. So as far as the stuff I want to talk about today, sorry for just to talk about the camp and all that stuff, but it's stuff I've been working on a lot recently. But I did actually get on the lake recently, and one of the lakes I went out to was over here in Oklahoma, and I've been kind of fishing a little bit on Oklahoma. I've been fishing on Grand Lake in Oklahoma, Lake Spavinaw, Lake Uchi. And I have a video actually coming out from Lake Uchi that's going to come out tomorrow or maybe Thursday. I think it might be Thursday, actually. I plan on putting it out. And I have another 3-hour challenge video from Beaver Lake, where I was out there fishing for 3 hours and did a challenge. And I'm going to be on Grand Lake a ton this fall, trying to figure this lake out. So I have some really cool video series you guys are going to love. They're going to be on these lakes around here. But I was actually out on Lake Spavinaw on Saturday for an on-the-water fishing lesson. And Lake Spavinaw is unique in Oklahoma because you actually have some grass and some hydrilla that's in this lake. And if you guys were following at all the Grand Lake of the Cherokee's Bassmaster Open that was out here. There was it was a Grand Lake Open. What was happening in this tournament is there was really good weights the first day of the tournament. It was pre-front conditions. The weather was, let's say, 80 degrees, and then it started raining, it started getting windy, this front pushed through, and the guys absolutely crushed them. Caught a ton of really big fish, catching them up shallow on moving baits, buzz baits, stuff like that. But then the second day of the tournament, it was post-front conditions. It was 50 degrees in the morning, bright bluebird skies, kind of heavier winds in the morning, lighter winds in the afternoon, then heavier winds kind of late afternoon. So kind of the classic post-front conditions, and the guys really struggled. Jason Christie, local stick, he caught 22 pounds the first day, and then he only had one keeper in the boat at noon on the second day of the tournament on Friday, ended up catching 9 pounds, and then the day after the post-front day, so the second day after the front, fishing was again really, really tough. The guy who was leading the tournament the first 2 days barely caught any fish. And so when you're dealing with these frontal conditions in the fall, it can make fishing super, super tough. And I actually fished 2 days before that front came through. So I fished on a Tuesday on Lake Uchi over in Oklahoma. And it's really only about maybe 20 miles from Grand Lake. And the day before, or 2 days before the front, we had really nice warm weather, and the fish were actually really positioned offshore. They're positioned offshore really well. And I was catching a lot of fish, as you'll see in my video I'm posting Thursday, on really nice ledges and rocky points and things like that. And I actually came back out here on a Friday for an on-the-water fishing lesson, and we struggled really bad. What happened is we were actually not even able to find any active fish offshore. They were all really inactive because we were fishing the day after a front. The fish were messed up. You could probably go and catch a few fish up shallow, but we didn't do that. We just kind of focused offshore, and we would see some fish on the graph, but they were very much suspended off the drop. And I actually have some recordings here I'm about to pull up so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. Let me pull this up over here, and I have some recordings from when I actually was catching them the other day, and I also have some recordings that will kind of simulate what it looked like when these fish were inactive. And if you take a look at see here, like this recording right here, you can see that in this image we have some kind of rocks and some brush that's up here on this drop. There's maybe one fish right here. This is some rock and some rocks. There's some little bit of rock up on top, like almost brush or sticks are up on top of this spot. And this is a really nice ledge. And if you look at this image right here, it's kind of hard to see what's going on, but what you'll notice is if you look really carefully, there's lots of fish out here in front of this drop, out here off the drop. You have a dot here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There's also some bait fish really far down here, kind of by this thermocline. And you notice there's very few fish up on top of this drop, if any. Just maybe one fish, two fish, just a couple fish up there. And what happens a lot of times in the fall, especially when you get these frontal conditions, these post-front conditions, is that these bass love to suspend out in the middle of these creeks and just kind of hang out. It's kind of like us when, maybe we have a really cold day and it maybe snows, it rains, something like that, and you just stay home. Or let's say it was a really bad snow day and you stay home, you're not going to go to work. Well, what happens is that the bass are the same way. They don't really want to go to their normal, favorite supper club or their favorite restaurant on the days after a post-front or days after a front in those post-front conditions. What they do is they'll just hunker down and kind of sit out over these deep channels and just sit there. They don't feed. They don't really worry about trying to eat. They are just shocked by the cold weather, by the front moving through, and maybe they fed up really, really well when that front was passing through. They had the cloud cover, the wind, the rain. So they just ate their fill, and they ate plenty the day before, so they just kind of are lazy and sitting out here over the channel. And on the days before the front and when the front was going through, you might see images like, for example, this image right here, where you can actually see right in here, there's actually some fish pushed up on top of this little drop, where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dots, and then some bait fish. And so you can see that there's some bait fish and there's some fish in this image. These fish were eating on these bait fish. Actually broke off a 7-pounder, 6.5-pounder that you'll see in the video. It broke off right at the boat. I saw the whole fish jump. It was like 10 feet from me, and that made a surge at the boat. pinned my rods at the bottom or the side of the deck, broke me off on a football jig. But basically what you'll see in this image is, again, you see some fish, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dots, along with these bait fish. And one thing that guys don't really correlate, which I'll talk about in my video I post Thursday, and I'll just give you a sneak peek, is that a lot of times when I find fish that are actively feeding offshore, there's going to be bait fish and fish in close proximity somewhere on top of like a point, a ledge, some sort of structure. And the reason that these bait fish and these fish are together is because these fish are eating these bait fish. It's kind of like if you think about like a live action movie. If you think about this, and this is a snapshot in time, and if we gave life to this photo, you would see the bait fish right here swimming around, and these bass are streaking up to come up and eat these bait fish. And what happens a lot of times is you might find a spot, for example, where you see a ton of fish up on the drop. Like right here, this spot right here, you got 1 fish, 2 fish, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fish, 12, 13 fish up on top of this drop. But there's no bait fish in sight. And so there's no food for those fish. So these fish are really, really tough to catch because they're not actually actively feeding because there's no food around. It's like, how are you supposed to eat food when you go to the dinner table and there's no food there? You can't. The only way that you might eat something is maybe if someone comes by and they're like, hey, I have this candy bar, I'll throw it on the table for you and, eat it if you're hungry before dinner while the food is getting prepared. And it's kind of like what happens when you drag a jig or a crankbait through this group of fish when they are just sitting here. There's no bait, there's no food, they're not actively feeding. And so when you bring your bait by, you'll drag that thing through them really slow. And if one of the fish is like, well, I'm kind of hungry, I might as well just take a bite of the candy bar, he'll go down, eat your jig, and you'll catch a fish or two. But then with these fish over here, where there's actually bait in the area, it's kind of like when you have the dinner table full of food. You got rolls, you got mashed potatoes, you got your brisket. And there's food everywhere, and you're just digging in, diving in, you're grabbing everything. Maybe it's a big family-style dinner, and you want to get as much food as you can before it's gone. And the idea is that kind of like humans, these bass are just trying to get this bait while they can. There's a limited amount of bait with a lot of bass. And so when you think about that, what these fish are doing is they're just eating anything in sight. And so if you bring a jig, a crankbait, any sort of bait in front of them, they're going to eat your bait. And so a lot of times I'll graph and graph and graph until I see images or actually see bait in close proximity to fish, because I can tell that those are going to be actively feeding bass as opposed to the bass that are just kind of hanging out, just by themselves with no bait around. And so that's something that's not really talked about on offshore fishing. A lot of the pros know about it. They just don't tell anybody about it because it's like one of the secrets of the pros, I guess. And so I don't know if I've talked about that in a video before, but I talk about it a lot in my Sonar classes. And I got tons of tips like this, guys, that if you sign up for that Sonar class I talked about them doing in Texas, the Sonar boot camp, I'll explain all this stuff to you guys. All the little tips and tricks and little subtle things I do, like how to catch the suspended bass, which bass that are suspended are catchable, which ones aren't catchable, all kinds of stuff like that I've learned over the years that I share in my videos. It's just they're spread out over like 15 videos, and so the Sonar class just puts them all together, and when you see it all together, it makes a lot more sense. And so if you take a look then maybe over at like this school of fish, you can see there's actually a bunch of fish here. This I didn't catch any of these fish. I don't know what these were. They look like they may be bass, like a few of these. There's some bait fish over here. There's a brush pile. I don't think these bass bit because his bait was way over here. I think if the bait fish was further up on this drop, maybe they bit. I think some of these might be crappie though too. It's kind of hard to tell. Didn't catch any of these fish, so I'm not sure what these were. But you can see over here, here's that spot on the 2D sonar. You can see these nice little arches up here. That image is the same thing as that image right there. That image is that image. That makes sense. Oh no, never mind. Sorry guys. That image right there. I was like, I'm not looking at the right thing. That image right here is the same thing as this right here. These little arches. This image here is the image where this is not fish. This is just like trees and brush, and then you see these fish suspended out here, like I mentioned before. So anyways, sorry about that. But basically, what you'll see is that these fish aren't actively feeding. And so what I find a lot of times is that you're going to find times in the post-spawn, the post-front, not post-spawn, post-front, where you're going to have these fish that are just kind of inactive. And sorry guys, I'm trying to find this thing over here. Inactive, sitting off the drop, just suspended out here in the middle of nowhere. And it's very, very common. And a lot of times these fish don't ever pull up on top of this drop and feed on the bait fish. They just are inactive all day. You can't get them to bite. Or there might just be like 1 or 2 fish on these drops, and you have to drag a jig super, super slow and just entice like 1 or 2 individual fish to bite, which is really, really difficult. And that's why we struggled to actually catch fish during our day on Lake Uchi. And we actually did get about 15 bites on the same areas where I was catching them really well the 2 days before front, but we were getting a lot of just pecks. We would get our pincers taken. We'd have some fish to just hammer the jig and then they spit it out because they're in that post-front mood and they just weren't eating it. And so it was a really, really tough day. And so that was on Friday. And then this is kind of a long story, guys. Hopefully this all makes sense. Let's kind of move away from Lake Uchi though and just kind of remember I need to have like a timeline here. This is why I like to make videos, guys, or actually edit, because I can actually edit in all these calendars and stuff. But anyways, so fished Uchi on a Tuesday, pre-front, crushed them. Fished it on a Friday, post-front, terrible. Then fished Spavinaw on a Saturday, which was 2 days after the front. And the fishing was really, really tough in the morning. Usually the second day after a front is going to be the toughest day. You're going to have bluebird skies, no wind, and the fish can just be absolutely lockjaw. There's no conditions to get those fish to feed with the lack of wind, with the sunny skies. And so when we pulled up on Spavinaw, I hadn't fished this lake in like a year and a half. So I had no idea where the fish were. We just pulled up and I'm like, we'll find something. And so we fished around, found a few fish here and there, caught maybe 5 fish. Biggest was like 2.5 pounds. Nothing great. But halfway through the day, we noticed that there was actually a new front that was coming through. New weather system was coming through. It actually started raining. The wind picked up. And I knew that these fish were in that kind of second day after a front funk. They weren't feeding. And then all of a sudden, that second front came through, and these fish started absolutely chewing. I mean, seriously, guys, chewing. So I'm going to come over here and pull up some of these images I got here. We got this right here. Really, really nice fish that I caught. We have, boom, really good chunks. Just trying to show you some images of some of the fish I was catching. Really nice fish. It's the same fish, actually. And this one right here. Some really good chunks. And these fish just started chewing all of a sudden. And you might be like, okay, why'd you catch nothing all day? And all of a sudden you started catching them. Well, what was happening is that the front, the cloud cover, the wind started rolling through. And basically, if you think about these weather conditions, these cloud cover the front, it's going to, if you kind of fish, before, you'll know, okay, cloud cover, wind, it gets fish active, it'll push them shallow, it'll get them aggressive. And so these fish in the morning were inactive, didn't have any conditions to get them to bite. Bright sun, no wind. And so what that means is that these fish just were nipping at our baits. We'd have a lot of short strikes. But then when the clouds came through, it caused the fish that were short striking our bait to start chewing it, just absolutely crushing it. And so we were actually fishing chatterbaits through the grass. That was kind of what we were doing. And so you can see I'm now in rain gear. Started the morning in just a t-shirt, nothing crazy. It was hot. It was kind of sunny. And then ended the day in frog togs with rain, and we were catching some giants. And where we actually ended up catching them was on a flat that's out here in the back of this lake, kind of in this area. And I've made several videos about this area actually before. And it's just a grass flat. You can see back in here there's actually lots of grass that sticks out. And what we found is that earlier in the day, you might be able to just kind of randomly pitch around in the flat, fish a worm, maybe fish the chatterbait really slow, and get one bite here, one bite there. We actually caught a couple 10-inch bass, 12-inch bass, nothing really that big. And what we were fishing in particular is, let me pull up an image here. We were fishing using Google Earth. I'm just using Google Earth and I'm going back in time, guys. We were fishing these ditches that cut through here. And again, I've shown these on my channel before, but we have these little ditches that cut in, boom, right here. And then some ditches that cut in right here, right there, that little small vein that cuts in here. And what these fish were doing is basically they were setting up on this big grassy flat, just kind of roaming around, Water temperatures were dropping from 80s into the 70s. So these fish are kind of pushing back from the main lake back into these flats. And what happened is in that cold front, a lot of the fish that were on this flat just kind of roaming around got drawn into these ditches, this slightly deeper water, because that deeper water has a little bit more warmth. They feel a little bit more protected in that little bit deeper water. So they sunk in into these ditches, into these basically deeper little cuts. And what we found is that you might be able to catch one fish here, one fish there, random. We had a lot of short strikes, a lot of fish that hit the bait and miss it. But then when those frontal conditions came through, the wind started picking up, the clouds came through, all the fish that were in this ditch that were right here, for whatever reason, just started to spread out on this flat, and they started busting shad on the surface. They started going crazy. And again, we caught like 1 or 2 fish in this ditch earlier in the day. And then when we pulled back up here, when the front started coming through, the wind started blowing 15 miles an hour, clouds came through, started raining. We absolutely hammered them, guys, like crazy. I think we had maybe 15 fish in like 20, 30 minutes, just like boom, catching them. I caught a 4 3/4 pounder. I had 2 other bigger ones come off. Like they were in the grass. I stuck them and then they came off. And I caught a lot of 2.5, 3 pounders as well in this just little ditch, just one little area. And all these fish in this flat, again, were congregating from all around into that ditch because the cold front came through, dropped the temperatures, and then they were finicky because there was, sun, no wind, and then when the front pulled back through, they crushed it. And so, moral of the story, I'm kind of rambling a little bit here, guys. Sorry, I'm live streaming a while, but these fish basically, a lot of times in the fall, they only bite in very small feeding windows. And what that means is that they might only bite for, let's say, an hour or 2 in a given day. That's it. And so you might find that the fish in this ditch are here all day. They're just sitting there. They're there, but they might only bite from 6 in the morning to 8 in the morning, or from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, or from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And you never know when that feeding window is. And so what I find a lot of times in the fall is that I'm really focused on trying to find groups of fish that are moving into these flats. They're kind of transitioning back into bays, into creeks. And a lot of times you'll see them on your Fishfinder, like out here, suspended off the drop. And you'll know that there's a school of fish there, but these fish won't pull up and feed every single time. They won't be there all day. And so there might be like a 2-hour little window where all of a sudden, like in this spot right here, you can see all of a sudden these fish that were out here in this image, I can actually see them out here in the morning, they pull up on top of this drop with my electronics. You can see them right here, just all dotted up. And there were some big fish, caught a 4-pounder here. And actually lost my Sonar recordings of this spot in the morning, which I'm really frustrated about because all these fish, you could see them out here dotted up. When I make the video, I'm just going to like Photoshop these dots and just move them out here, put them out here. Because literally you would just see these dots just like this, but just like that. Just spread out, and they're chasing this bait. And this is actually, I had to go back and re-record this image because I lost my recording, and then I realized at the end of the day, went back and re-recorded, and in this spot time, the fish had stopped feeding, because again, this bait fish over here had left the spot. It had moved back out over this drop, and so I graphed this at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but I pulled up there at like 1:30, this bait fish was up on top of this drop. Again, I graphed it, I saw it, I lost the recording. I'm so frustrated about that. But anyway, this is just a little rocky point, and these fish were stationed up there, and when the bait was up there, they were chewing. And so a lot of times you'll find that these groups of fish will move from deep back to shallow, back to deep, and they may only pull up on top of this drop and feed for an hour, hour and a half in the day. And same thing kind of goes with these ditches and things like that. You might find that there's little small feeding windows, whether it's when the wind picks up a little bit, first thing in the morning, right when the sun's coming over the horizon, maybe later in the afternoon when the sun pops out and they get closer to the cover. Kind of depends on the lake, the type of cover you're fishing. There's a lot of variables that go into that. That's what the offshore fishing playbook is for. I mentioned that earlier in the stream. I got the offshore fishing playbook available for sale that you can purchase, and it talks about all these things. The forces, my 10 forces of offshore fishing, what to be paying attention to, where to fish offshore, when to fish offshore, how to line up your timing of the where and the when, how to find those groups of fish in general, all kinds of stuff. This is a really, really good resource that you guys can use to find fish offshore that is definitely going to be helpful to you. And so really what I wanted to share with you guys today is a little bit of just kind of what I was doing on the lakes, kind of this frontal conditions. I feel like I kind of, again, rambled a little bit, but basically wanted to walk through my last couple days of fishing and kind of wanted to explain to you that timing aspect of fall fishing that is a lot of times overlooked. And a lot of times that timing is still relevant in the late summer, into the fall, also into the winter. There's times when the timing is really key. There's also times when the timing doesn't really matter. So for example, in June, a lot of times the fish, when they first pull off offshore, they'll just bite all day. You can just catch them. Or sometimes like when you get more into like November, December, those fish offshore will just chew. And then when you get into January, February again, it gets a little bit tougher and timing dependent. And so I'll be talking about that a lot in my upcoming videos, guys, and I'll be really excited to share information about that with you guys. But one other thing I want to talk about that I found really interesting was I spent a couple days on Grand Lake and actually struggled a little bit to find fish offshore and how to catch fish in general out here on Grand Lake. And I watched that Grand Lake Bassmaster Open, kind of followed what the guys were using, what they were throwing, and actually figured out how to catch some fish up shallow on this lake, but was struggling to catch fish offshore. And one thing I wanted to share with you guys that I think is really relevant, especially for tournament anglers, is the advantage that the local anglers can have on other fishermen. And so one thing that happened in this tournament, basically, that's for better or for worse, there's a local who signed up for the tournament, and he's a guy who actually fishes out there all the time and can plant brush piles on this lake. And so what he was doing is he was planting brand new green brush piles off of points in 15 to 30 feet of water. And a lot of times when I'm graphing around offshore, what I like to do is just graph all kinds of different areas, graph literally everything in like a bay like this, and try to find some of these guys' brush piles that they plant in random weird locations. And one thing the guy said is he was like, well, I planted these brush piles 2-3 weeks before the tournament, and from my experience and from what he said in the article, the bass love brand new green brush piles. And that's actually on Lake Dardanelle in Arkansas, Central Arkansas. That's how I always did well in tournaments, is I would just graph around like for 4 days in the summer in a row, and I would just find all the new brush piles people planted out, and I would just rotate the brush piles when they weren't there. And if people plant their brush piles out there, I find them myself, and if you can find the brush piles that have the leaves on them still, those bass will get drawn to them like magnets. Well, that is great if you are fishing out in the lake where a lot of that happens. I think that happens out here as well, but this guy kind of had an even bigger advantage because he was a good fisherman, plus he dropped like, I don't know, who knows how many brush tops out here. And I tried to fish brush tops in offshore areas in 15 to 30 feet of water, 15 to 30 feet of water like crazy on Grand Lake the few days before this tournament, a couple weeks before this tournament, and I was just not having a lot of success. And what he said in his article is that these fish basically were getting hammered all summer. And so all of the brush piles, all the good rocky areas that normally produce fish had already been beaten up by this tournament time. And so those fish were conditioned to baits, they weren't biting. And so by planting his homemade brush piles, he was able to actually find some really good fish out there. And he only ended up catching 4 fish on 2 of the days of the tournament, called limit the last day, or maybe the second day. And so he only caught, like, I think of his 15 potential bass, he caught 13. But they were all really big ones, and he won. And so, I don't know, I kind of want to get your opinion. If you think about, is that something that's good to do, not good to do? I mean, it's within the rules. It does kind of suck a little bit if you're just a weekend angler, though, and you're trying to compete in these big tournaments, and you have guys who are planting brush piles that are making their own tops and putting that effort in, because it's really hard to compete with those guys, especially if they're out there 4 or 5 days a week fishing. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is not to bash on the guy in the FLW tournament. Guys do it all the time. A lot of tournaments are won that way. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because I just want you guys to know that that happens in tournaments. And if you're not as successful in tournaments, or if there's 4 or 5 guys on your local lake that are just winning every single tournament, that can be why they're winning. They're out there all the time. They know all the spots. One, they know where all those good schools of fish are. Plus, they have these like brush piles they plant, rock piles they plant. On the Arkansas River, for example, they plant like pallets, and they put cinder blocks in there on sand flats and sandbars, and the fish will get drawn to those, and they'll fish these pallets. And no one knows they're there other than the guys who plant them. And so that's the kind of stuff that goes on in tournament angling. That's one of the reasons why I kind of got away from tournament fishing a little bit, is because it really got to a point where there's these guys who plant their brush piles, and then if you find their brush piles, they get angry at you and they accuse you of following them around. I've been accused of that. I follow people around stealing their brush piles, and I just find them because I just graph, and that was something people didn't do like 5 years ago. And so it kind of just got a little bit fell out of love with tournament fishing because of that. But I do want to do a little bit more fishing out here on Grand Lake and maybe do some tournaments out here in the future, just to show you guys how I practice for a tournament, how I would think about fishing a tournament, watch me actually go into a tournament and fish. I think that would be interesting. I'm also going to be out here on Grand Lake 2 days a week, every single week starting in mid-November, and I'm just going to basically figure out how to catch fish offshore and up shallow out here. And, just for guys who are on Grand, recently did find a lot of fish back in the back of Horse Creek. And it's crazy sometimes how quickly these shad can migrate on some of these lakes. For example, if you look, maybe I talked about Grand a while back, but I was finding a lot of fish out here kind of on the main lake and like the main part of Horse Creek back in here. And there was a ton of bait fish out here earlier in the year, and there still is some bait fish here. And there's also a lot of bait fish kind of in this area, and they're all through here. And that was like August. And now in like the second week of September, third week of September, just in a month and a half, all the shad that was out here on this main part of this lake, a lot of it pushed really far back into these bays back here, and a lot of it pushed like way back into the back of these creeks back here, like a huge move way back into these creeks. And so these shad can make really big pushes. And I actually found a ton of bait fish stacked up in the back of this creek, and we caught a 4-pounder off a dock right here, caught some nice just fish on a crankbait, fishing down through some areas through here. So there's a lot of shad, just kind of fishing where the shad were, nothing crazy up shallow. Just we found pockets that were loaded with shad, started fishing spinnerbaits and crankbaits and caught some good fish. So it's not like really that much it's not like rocket science, but that's why I don't do a lot of shallow fishing too, because anyone can run into the shad and then just start casting a bait around and catch them. That's why I try to find them offshore. But I don't know. I found the Grand Lake was tough offshore for me because I wasn't able to spend enough time out there to find those really good groups of fish. And the ones I did find were getting hammered by people because I just was fishing in bad areas of the lake for offshore fishing, like this area, Honey Creek. I found like 4 or 5 areas that were decent, but there were a bunch of people all around, so I only caught a handful of fish offshore. And then just checked a bunch of different areas of this lake, and haven't really been back this fall. So I'm going to spend some time over here in Duck Creek, down here in Drowning Creek, and I'm basically going to show you guys how I break down going through this creek, what I do to find fish in this creek, how do I know if I should fish the first third of the creek, middle of the creek, back of the creek. What do I fish? Do I fish shallow? Do I fish offshore? I want to walk you through my thought process every single day, every single time I go fishing, so you guys get a feel for why I'm doing what I'm doing, what are the conditions on the day, all kinds of stuff. And even if I go 0, I'm going to show it. If I catch no fish, I'm going to show it, because I feel like that's really valuable for you guys too. And hopefully at this point you guys know that I actually can catch fish, and so you won't beat me up too bad when I don't catch anything. But there are days when I go out and I just don't find them, and so I want to kind of talk to you through that. And then also, since I'm going 2 days a week on the lake, hopefully I can go, maybe I show first half of the video me sucking, and then I edit 2 days in a row where I say, okay, first day I sucked, it was terrible. Second day I learned from my sucking, and then I was able to actually find some fish and catch them. And so hopefully you guys will enjoy that type of video as well. Plus I'll be doing my 2-hour challenge videos. And yeah, that's pretty much it for kind of what I want to talk about today. I didn't have a super tight content idea in mind for the stream. I'm still wanting to try to think about how I can make these streams better. I'm going to be doing these streams every other week. And if you missed it earlier, I am going to be doing a schedule on my website where I actually have my live stream posted. So you'll see the next one is going to be on the 22nd of October. And this schedule will be kept up to date. And you guys will be able to see all my events, the Fishing with Bass camps. I'm also planning on doing some stuff for my Patreon members, a free seminar for those guys. And so it's stuff that I'm just trying to I've been, honestly, guys, I've been super busy. I promise I haven't just been not posting videos. Like, I have been swamped with stuff, working all kinds of hours trying to get my logo together, get all my other stuff together, get Bass Camp organized, my fishing playbooks, new content schedule, trying to think of all these different things, and also just getting like my accounting, all that stuff set up, just business stuff that you need to be able to do. And so I had to set up QuickBooks, and just, you guys get, if you guys do businesses, you guys know. So a lot of stuff going on, but hopefully going to be putting a lot more YouTube videos out, I will be putting a lot more YouTube videos out starting in mid-November. I will be putting them out in a consistent schedule on certain days of the week. To be TBD on what days those are. I'm also going to be posting a lot more on Instagram and on my other social media pages. I do have perks coming to my Patreon members that you guys will be able to take advantage of, and all things I'm going to be working on. So anyways, and then Desert Angler is asking, do you know where Bass Camp will be after Rayburn? I don't quite yet. I know I'm planning on doing one in Northwest Arkansas and one in Central Arkansas next year, and then from there, TBD kind of. I plan on doing at least one in South Carolina, and so I know that I'll be reaching out to you, Desert Angler, on that. So I plan on doing one in South Carolina just based on popular demand, and then probably gonna do one maybe in Tennessee, one maybe in Alabama, and then I have my one in Texas and South Carolina. So that's pretty much it. So I think that might be it. And then I'm planning on going to different states over time, trying to go basically 4 different places every single year for my bass camps. And so, again, really excited about doing these. I'm going to be doing them 6 bass camps a year, basically going to be a week-long event where you can sign up. If you want to sign up for all the camps, you can. You can sign up for the on-the-water lessons, the sonar camp, the offshore fishing boot camp, and the casting camp. You can do all of them. You can do one of them. It doesn't matter. You can sign up for one individual one. I have them on a lot of different nights, so hopefully you guys are on weekends as well. So hopefully you guys can join and stay maybe around Sam Rayburn, do some fishing around there too, to kind of put into practice what I'm teaching. And so it should be really fun though. And Sam Rayburn in January should be really good as far as the fish catching goes offshore. So I am really excited about that. I'm going to answer some questions now. And hopefully anyways, yeah, I'm going to answer some questions. Hopefully I'll be able to get to everybody before the end of the stream. But if you guys are watching back on YouTube, don't want to hear all the questions, then thanks for checking out the stream. I'm just going to be going through questions, reading through what everyone had to say. But hopefully this was helpful. I know I rambled on a little bit more than usual. Didn't have anything super tight. So I'm going to work on that and take that as a learning for myself. But again, wanting to get a lot of content out and going to be getting a lot more videos to you guys. So I'm really excited about that. And thanks for sticking with me as I've been working through everything, and for sticking with me as I'm getting this business up off the ground. And so again, we'll be a lot more consistent going forward. So again, appreciate all the support, guys. But anyways, let's jump to some questions here. So I'm going to go up to the top. We have, let's see here. Let's see here. Some people are saying, finally, you're back. Clint says, hey, Johnny, I made it. I may be fishing a tournament on Beaver this week. What would you do? I was actually on Beaver recently. I'll be having a video on that, but I won't have it before this weekend. I might as well show you the one spot where I caught them, just because, why not? I caught them in a 3-hour challenge video. I was over here. This is Rocky Branch right here. Got Rocky Branch, and then over here you have a little point right here. And I don't really know all these creeks, but there's like Van Hollow. I don't know. I think Van Hollow, or I don't really know what all these creeks are called. I probably should know since it's the closest lake to where I live, but I don't fish beaver that much. But there's a point right here, and I pulled up here on this point twice. First time I pulled up on it, caught like 2 10-inch smallmouth. Second time I pulled up on it, caught like a 2 1/4 and a 2 and a 2 1/4 pound spotted bass. And there were a bunch of fish here. I'll have my Sonar recordings, and I'll talk about the spot in a video in like a couple days. So I'll post it on like Saturday, but it won't be up before your tournament. So that's the spot where I caught some. So maybe look for more like channel swing points on the main lake. And then also with all these cold weather coming through and the rain, might be worth actually running all the way up the river up here and maybe trying to fish a spinnerbait and some stuff in shallow water with all that newly flooded water. That could be a good deal. Let's see what else we got here. Need some tips on fall cold fronts. Currently down 4 feet due to lack of rain. So as far as that's a good question there. As far as not really a question, but as far as the falling water. Falling water is something that happens a lot this time of year on these reservoirs. And one thing I'll say is that falling water can be really, really good because it can actually congregate those fish into a little more obvious areas. And so if we think about, for example, on like a beaver lake, if we go over here, this lake gets drawn down every once in a while. And what happens is when these lakes start getting drawn down, let me kind of find an image, when the lake's drawn down, it basically is going to limit the cover and the places these fish can get. And so if we take this lake from like a normal pool, we find a normal pool, it's like a normal pool here, where the lake is up in the bushes, it's up in the trees, and we take it from a normal pool down to, let's say, a winter pool. So in a winter pool, you'll see there's a lot less cover in the water. These fish will pull to the outside edge of the bushes. They'll also pull to any sort of rock or steeper rock banks you might have. So I'm trying to find one right here. So like right here, where you have some maybe steeper chunk rock banks. And the reason they'll pull here is twofold in the fall. One, they like to get on the chunk rock because it's going to hold heat. The other reason they like to get to the chunk rock is because it gives them some sort of cover to ambush fish around, and bait fish and crawfish. And when you fish down these banks, there might be a lot less cover in the water for those fish to hide around because the lake's falling out. So finding rock that's exposed and that might be in shallower water after the lake falls is really good. And also fishing brush piles. A lot of times you can find brush piles that guys plant out in like maybe 10 feet of water, and when the lake's down 4 feet, they're only in 6 foot of water, and maybe even the tips of them are sticking up. You can pitch those brush piles and like flip them, fish a square bill, crankbait around them, Alabama rigs around them, and crush them. Something that's fun to do. See here. And then Robert Turner is asking if I gave away more passwords this week. I did not. The software I was using was Reefmaster. It's a pretty good software package for looking at sonar recordings, and definitely would check it out. I'm not sponsored by them, but it's just really the only one I found that works with my Humminbird Onyx recordings. So that's the reason I use it. Seeing some guys are purchasing the offshore fishing playbook. I appreciate that. Can you tell me why when I'm fishing a tube I set the hook on a fish, my line snaps, I'm using 14-pound mono? Jamie Ferguson. Jamie, a couple things that might be. One, it might be your knot. You might actually not be tying your knot well. So I would recommend checking to make sure that you're tying a good knot, like a Palomar knot. Palomar knot is going to be a really good knot for that 14-pound monofilament. Next thing you want to check is the guides on your fishing pole. A lot of times the guides on your fishing pole can get old. Maybe one of the inserts is missing in the guide, one of the little inserts in the guide tips, and that can be fraying your line as you're reeling it in. And then the other thing is make sure you're buying decent monofilaments. So buy like some Strun Original or something that's some good quality monofilament knot, or like even Berkeley Big Game is good monofilament, but don't buy like the Walmart $2 a spool stuff. That stuff will break. Let's see here. And then Michael says, you still going to do something for Patreon members only? Yes, I will, Michael. Appreciate the reminders on that. That's something I plan on doing once I get still have some on-the-water fishing lessons I have to get through, and I still have to get my content kind of back on a normal schedule. Once I get everything organized, I'm hoping starting in like November, December, so appreciate you bearing with on that. But in November, December, sometime in there, I'm going to start doing I think I'm doing a Patreon-only live stream for guys, as well as trying to do some other kind of bonuses for my Patreon members, just some extra content for you guys, and some extra like articles I'll be posting, things like that. So I'm trying to think of all the different ideas I can have, but I do want to make it worth it to be a Patreon member more than just supporting me for the YouTube content. And so definitely gonna be doing that. Hopefully not doing on Beyond the Water lessons, and some of the other stuff I'm doing will allow me to focus on that more and give it more time, because it deserves it for sure. And I really do appreciate it. If you are a Patreon member, thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. Helps me do what I do every day, and I could not do this without you. And so I really appreciate all the support there, and it's something that I'm going to continue to improve on. And again, I have lots of pots on the stove, and so I'm trying to shuffle them all around and try to prioritize them all. But hopefully you guys understand that. Let's see here. And then, let's see. Some people have always asked, have you ever heard or studied the teaching of Buck Perry, the grandfather of structure fishing? I've never heard of Buck Perry, honestly, before, which I'm surprised because I feel like I studied everything about bass fishing, but I've never heard of Buck Perry before. I don't know, he was like a cult offshore fisherman guy, like cult classic offshore fisherman. I studied offshore fishing and, spent my whole life trying to learn to fish offshore since I was 12 years old. And been fishing since I was 7 years old, studying. I can tell you every single Bassmaster Classic champion from 1970 or 1980s all the way through. And so I don't really know how I ever missed Buck Perry, but I've seen some of his stuff now because people say that I'm plagiarizing him, which is really funny because I've never heard of him before. So it's funny how I am coming into a lot of the same conclusions he came to, even though I had no idea who he was. But I promise you, I didn't know who Buck Perry was, which is probably going to shock some people. But I don't know how I never heard of him. I really don't. Or maybe I heard the name, but I never seen any of his stuff before, or really made note in my mind of any of his stuff. Anyways, so Ernest saying he purchased the offshore playbook. Thank you so much, Ernest. Appreciate that. Let's see here. And then TN Outdoors says, how fast do fish move towards shallower depths in cold fronts? I would say that in the cold fronts, the bass will actually push a little bit deeper right after the cold front hits. But then a couple days after the cold front, those fish will start to make their way back. So they don't it's not like a cold front comes through, the fish are out here in the middle off of an area and they go straight to the bank. A lot of times they'll actually maybe pull up to the bank in the pre-front before the front rolls through. They'll pull up, they'll feed, and right after the front they'll pull off. And then after the weather starts to warm up, they'll start to move back. So it's more of a out here, front comes through, they move to the bank. Front after the front, post-front, they move off the bank a little bit, and then as the front kind of subsides 2-3 days after the front, they'll start moving back. That's kind of at least how I've found it to be the case. And then it's just a gradual transition. Basically, the reason the bass are moving is not because the bass want to move, it's because they're following the bait. So wherever the bait fish go, that's where the bass are going to move. If the bait fish are up on the bank, the bass are going to be on the bank. If the bait fish are in the middle of the pockets, the bass are going to be in the middle of the pockets. They want to be able to feed. It's like us. If we have some food trucks around your office and it's lunchtime, if the food truck pulls up to the same place 4 days in a row, you're going to go to that spot. But then if the food truck is gone, you might stay there for a day. And after the food truck isn't there for 2-3 days, and you're like, man, I'm kind of hungry. I want to eat lunch. And you'll go find where the food truck is. I don't know if that's a good analogy, but that's the best one I could think of. And then Gregory asks, how do I purchase the book, the playbook? All you have to do is just go to fishthemoment.com, go to fishing playbooks up here, and then you can just go right here and hit purchase the offshore fishing playbook on fishthemoment.com. Pretty straightforward. Let's see here. Some people saying you're back. Let's see. How far are you setting your side scan to find these brush piles? Also, what distance do you image to start to dissipate in accuracy in identifying objects? Good question, Caleb. So basically, I always set my side imaging range to 70 feet. Is kind of a good range. Right here it's actually 80 feet, but this is because I'm using my software. But I like to set it to 70 feet. The reason I set it to 70 feet is because if you set your range on your sonar more than 70 feet, basically, everything on your screen starts looking really, really small. So, for example, like this right here is like a little rocky ridge, or like this rocky ridge. This is like right now, well, it's actually 15 feet down this way, or 20 feet down this way right here, because this is the area between your transducer and then the bottom of the lake. This is the water, so it goes 20 feet here, then it goes 60 feet down, so it's or across. So it goes 20 feet down, 60 feet across. If that doesn't make sense, sign up for the Offshore Fishing Bootcamp. I have really nice life-size illustrations, and they'll explain how all this works and how you can see fish on your side imaging, all that stuff. But as far as this goes, this ridge is 60 feet long. And so that's a pretty long area. That's 3 boat lengths right there. And so this looks kind of small on the screen. Like maybe right here is actually the size of your boat. And so that's a pretty big area. Well, if you go to 80 feet, there's going to be 4 boat lengths within here. So the spot's only going to be this big. If you go to 100 feet, it's just going to be 5 boat lengths, which means that it's going to be this little tiny area. And so when you go to like 100 feet, something the size of your boat looks like the size of a quarter on the graph. As opposed to if you go with like a 60, 70 foot range, then you are going to be able to really see these objects a lot better. They're going to be a lot bigger on the screen. And so that's kind of the way I think about it. I like to set my side imaging range to be a little bit more narrow, just so that the objects don't look tiny and I can actually see what's going on. They don't look like insignificant objects, even though they're actually the size of my boat. Okay, there's a few more questions here. How many spots are open on Sam Rayburn? How many days does it last? That's Willie Allen. So basically for the bass camp, I will have individual classes. I have everything down here if you go to the bass camp. You kind of have to, I kind of have these set up so you can buy them like a la carte almost. So there's the individual like full day on the water lessons, you go for a day, and then these other classes are at night, so it's not like an all-inclusive package. I couldn't find a good way on my website to bundle stuff, so you also have to kind of buy them piecemeal. So if you want to do the sonar camp plus an on-the-water lesson, you have to buy them separately. There's no good way to kind of, on my website, I wanted to try to create packages and stuff, but I tried for like a day. I could not figure it out. I Googled, I tried to do code, I did all kinds of crazy stuff, guys. You have no idea. I've been wasting a lot of time trying to do stuff like that, but didn't work. So I just went with this. But basically, the camp starts on Friday, January 10th, and I'll basically be there from January 10th through the 15th. I'll be there all those days doing a lot of different offerings. And so there's 3 spots for the full day on the water lessons, 20 spots for the other camps. And so only 10 spots actually are available for Classroom plus on the water for the sonar camp. So if you want me to get in your boat and actually set your graph up for you as part of the camp, that's a $300 session. There's 10 spots for that. And then just $150 for the regular sonar camp. And there's 10 spots for that. And so getting on the water with you is definitely worth it. It's worth the extra. It's $150 extra, but it is by far the most valuable thing I can do for you to set up your sonar. And so I would definitely do this option if I were you. If you want to really learn it all, this option here is going to be good. It's going to really be helpful. It's not going to be as good because I won't be able to get in your graph and actually set it up for you. So I just don't have the time to go out and do all 20 boats just based on what I saw in my last bass camp. But anyways, that is what I can get to. Unfortunately, there are a lot of other things that I'm seeing here, but unfortunately I cannot get to everything right now. But people are coming on like crazy now, 217 people right as I'm about to jump off. So unfortunately I do have to jump off the stream, guys, but I will be doing our stream. If you go to my website and you want to check the schedule, just go to fishmoment.com, go to my calendar right here. You'll see the Fish Moment live stream schedule. I'll have my content release schedule for YouTube videos, all kinds of stuff up. Also going to be working on more of these lake breakdowns, where I'll also have map breakdowns. I'm going to be doing more of the playbooks, like the offshore fishing playbook, things like that. I'm trying to give myself more time to make these things. Also, my free bait guides. I'll be doing more of those. And so if you use the links in these free bait guides, I get a small cut of the profits from Tackle Warehouse. So I really appreciate if you did that, just to help support the channel. So other than that, hope you guys enjoyed the stream, and hopefully I will see you guys very soon in a couple weeks. And then you'll also be seeing me in at least 4 videos between now and that stream. So that's 4 videos to look forward to. And I am pumped to be able to get 4 videos out, because I have not been able to make videos at all because I've been so swamped with everything else. So I'm super excited. The one I'm working on right now is going to be awesome. You guys are going to love it. So I'm really excited about that, and I know you guys are going to like it. So hopefully, again, you guys enjoyed the stream, and I'll see you guys next stream, which is going to be, let me go to my calendar. It's going to be the October 22nd from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, right back here on YouTube. So thanks again for checking out the stream, everybody, and I will see y'all in a couple of weeks.